Welcome back to another episode of the Align for Success podcast. I'm Deborah Deras, your hostess with the mostest, here with another episode of Align for Success TV, where you get to meet my friends, my mentors, people that inspire me by the way they are living their life, by the way they are walking their talk and embodying their movement, not just having a job but having a joy, having a soul's contract that allows them to fulfill their vision in this world so that you can be inspired to do the same. We are here each and every week on Tune In Tuesday, right here on Facebook, right here on YouTube, wherever you're streaming in from. And guess what? This podcast is not just me talking, it's also you getting to ask your questions to the guests, getting to find out the resources, the information you need to be able to align for success, which really is the inner work for the outer results. Want to make a couple announcements before I bring on my very, very special guest, back by popular demand because he was on my other show, the Be a Paid Speaker Now podcast. We are now streaming live, guess where? Apple Podcast, Google, you may have heard of Google, and Spotify. And if you would like to listen rather than watch the podcast, you can go over to your favorite streaming podcast and search Align for Success TV. Whether it's on Spotify or Apple or Google, you can listen there. Also, if you would like to watch online, you can follow me. I am at Latina Speaker, both on Instagram and YouTube. And on YouTube, we have the videos. So if you've missed any episodes, and we've had some amazing guests, you can go back anytime. Just search Latina Speaker and you can find it. Also, at Latina Speaker, I have some gifts for you over on my Instagram. I have created video series on mindset, marketing, and manifestation by your special request. When you go to my Instagram, you follow me, Latina Speaker. Guess what? You'll be able to download those videos, learn and earn, my friend. Learn and earn, says Debbie De Niro. Okay, that's enough for now. I really want to introduce our very, very special guest who is back by popular demand. And today's guest is Mr. Dan Faill. He has worked for 15 years on college campuses advocating for safe and positive student experiences. He is a full time speaker, coach, consultant, engaging audiences in hard but much needed conversation. He shares his personal stories that engage and inspire us to be our authentic selves and be brave and to have conversations that matter. Please help me welcome my friend and yours, Dan.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me back.
Oh my God. By special demand, by my special demand, I demanded it. I was like, you know what? Out of all the guests, and by the way, I had 67 guests on the Be a Paid Speaker now, and I only had one other guest return back. And it's
Wait.
because I just love who you are. I love what you're doing. And I think it's a very, very important message that you're out to spread the world, especially. I have a warm place in my heart for men. I used to be an advocate of a fatherhood program, and my brother is a single father. And I feel that, everyone has women's empowerment, but I also believe
Yeah.
in men's empowerment. And I know that's
Totally.
what you're all about.
Yeah, I think right, empowerment all right. Let's be Oprah with the empowerment, right? Like you get some empowerment and you get some empowerment, right? And I think we need a little bit more. We need more of that in the world.
It's so true. It's so true. And I know that you're booked and busy right now. You've been on the road. I've been seeing you doing your stories. How many speaking engagements have you had in the last week?
I did 7 engagements in 12 days from the state of Washington to Ohio to New Jersey to Connecticut and all the things.
That is so inspiring. And I know a lot of people that have been pivoting during the pandemic have dreams of becoming a motivational speaker. Can you let them know how you got started in the business?
Sure. So I worked for a very long time, for over a decade. I worked with student organizations. So my job was to not only empower them, but to really do some work around, okay, let's understand your behavior and what are you doing around alcohol and why are we drinking too much? Or, all right, let's understand risk management and what that means. And there's only so many ways that you can make those topics fun, engaging in general, where people want to pay attention.
Right.
And I realized a little early on that I had an ability to take those very odd or seemingly dry or very heavy topics and make them pretty engaging and relatable. And so I had a friend of mine actually who worked at Cal State Northridge, and he was like, "Hey, Dan, got a couple $100. I'll pay you to come up and talk to my students because they're not going to listen to me, but they'll listen to you say almost the exact same things as I would. But because you're the external speaker, they'll listen to you." And of course, I'm thinking, number one, you're going to pay me? Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. So drove up, did it. And after the hour, I think the best compliment that you can get when you speak to higher education audiences is if a student comes up and they say, "Hey, you know what? That didn't suck. Like that was good. Like you did, like that wasn't boring." They might not have gotten some of the other stuff, but if they come up and they're like, "Hey, you know what? Like this was better than I thought it would be." Sometimes that's the win that we
Right.
sometimes. I think also what I've have continued to find is that path I got a lot of passion out of, and I got a lot of drive. I love the ability to continue to go and then to impact, and like you said, to create the conversations that matter around hard, heavy subjects that feel awkward. So if we're going to talk about alcohol and consent and where those meet, great, let's have that conversation. If we're going to talk about building up a student organization to get more members in, great. It's not about an event or the party that you throw. It's about a conversation that you have. And so how do you start those relationships? And that's what I've kind of continued to leverage. Again, using that 15 years in the higher education space. I work now and I coach and consult and speak on those different college campuses, but I've also started to leverage some of that, I guess, kind of externally outside of higher ed as well.
I love it. And I'm sure speaking is somewhat natural for you, right? Because most people when they go to speak on stage aren't naturally engaging and funny and relatable,
Mhm.
especially with such difficult topics. Do you have any advice or tips for people that have to maybe present on a difficult topic and they're feeling nervous and they're not
Mhm.
feeling engaging? What could you say to them that could help them be more at ease?
Um, Authenticity reigns supreme. I
Ah,
think showing up as yourself, even if you are nervous and acknowledging that at the onset, I think goes a long way. Telling your story rather than someone else's story, and it doesn't even have to be the like, it was a dark and stormy night and I lost control, or like it doesn't have to be this like heavy story. It can be something that's just like I jokingly tell a story that when I go to grocery shopping, I will take everything back in one load. Like I will unload the car and I will give myself a hernia from the car to my place,
me too.
unloading the groceries, right? Like I even have the like carabiner with the padding on it so that I can grab more groceries.
Oh, wow.
And I talk about that as like, well, look, think about the burdens that we put on ourselves and the
Mm,
limits and things that we put on ourselves. So it doesn't have to be this incredibly heavy, horrible story. It can be just some of the daily things that we share. But the more that we share about ourselves, the more that others will identify with us. And I think that's what makes a great speaker even better and more engaging and trustworthy.
I love it. Yeah, authentic, be yourself, and if you're feeling nervous, say it. When I first started speaking, I was young, and they used to introduce me as a young speaker. I was in my mid-20s, and I would get so offended. But I was trying to be like this professor type person that I thought they wanted to be, and it wasn't relatable. And the one of a couple times that I bombed, I was speaking to teachers, and I was just thinking too much in my head, and it
Mhm.
wasn't being authentic. And I said something like, "Oh, I'm sure you guys have been alive longer than I've been doing," or something like that. And they like were booing me. They were like, it was because I was trying to fake the funk
Yeah.
and
Well, and
not just say I'm nervous, you
yeah, and
know?
I think I realized that too, trying to create that like stage persona. And yes,
Right.
I am like and we were chatting before this way. I'm this way in general. And I used to wear like the really nice jacket with the vest and the ties and all. but your boy gets a little sweaty. And so, right on my end, I would often just like, come off stage, just completely look like I'd come out of a shower, and it still limited me on stage a little. And so I never felt like I was showing up as me. And then when I started to do just like a sweater, or I'll do just like a long sleeve polo or something like that, I'm like, this feels more natural to my sense of style. A nice pair of jeans, again, showing up as you, both physically, you show up as yourself mentally, and that's really what's going to help so much.
Exactly. And what you do is so important in talking about really key issues of alcohol abuse and consent and, you know, having these difficult conversations. We all need to learn how to do that, not just people on college campuses. What got you into being an expert on this specific topic? And what advice do you have for people going into Thanksgiving having to have difficult conversations?
So I'll approach this, excuse me, from two different paths, right? And so one is I would not call myself an expert at the intersection of alcohol and consent. I think that has just been my zone of the not only the stories that I share, but then also how I communicate those important conversations that matter to audiences. That really stemmed from the fact that I was in college. I got blacked out drunk. Apparently, I had sex, but don't remember it, which that is by fact and by definition, sexual assault. I never realized that I was a survivor. I didn't tell a lot of my friends or family for almost a decade. In fact, some of them might be watching and finding out now. Surprise! And so, right, like I never consider myself an expert in that area. I don't do the research like some of my friends do that are also amazing speakers. And so for me, that is an experience that I feel I can make relatable, especially when I worked with students for so long that I would hear them want to get completely drunk and then hook up. And I'm like, oh, let's talk about
Right.
where this intersects, but then also where better decisions can be made.
Right.
And then on the kind of the other side of that of looking at leadership and imposter syndrome, and I grew up with the last name Faill. And if you become a speaker or a coach or whatever, and you don't use and leverage that to like fail forward or fail safe or
Right.
whatever types of fails, it's a missed opportunity. So I also talk about though, and that really frames this, mindset. And that's where I think a lot of the work tends to happen, both feeling comfortable sharing a story, mindset, feeling like you're an imposter in your own life, mindset. And so there are little tips and tricks that I like to give audiences on ways to silence that imposter syndrome voice, but really have those, like you said, conversations that matter. And when it comes to with family, like like they might be doing, around the holidays, that's going to be finding time. And it's okay to dismiss yourself from a conversation if you need to. And there's, you can Google all the different how to put up with those family members during the holidays. I think a lot of it comes back to what truth are you willing to stand in? Some of the conversations I've had to have with parents recently have been like, yep, I am now recently out of a relationship that I was really into. It's what happens. Life is life, but we stood in our truth, and the conversation that we had was so incredible. And as adults, we were able to have that. I think for family, we often give too many graces. It's like, well, that's just the uncle saying this. That's just them saying this. And that builds up to the point where we just either shut down or blow up, neither of which are good.
Right.
And so
Implode or explode.
yeah, and so we have to be able to try to figure out where those limits are or where those boundaries are for ourselves before going into it. But there's some really cool, resources that I would recommend looking at that are other speaker resources around putting up with family around the holidays.
Yeah. I'm actually looking forward to it. After I think if one thing that the pandemic taught me was to really appreciate quality time. I had 3 family members in the hospital last year. My uncle in Colombia had COVID. My mom's boyfriend had COVID, and my dad had a heart attack. And the fact that I'm able to have Thanksgiving now, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful to be able to actually hug my family this year. But it's like so much has changed, and the way we live, the way we work, the way we communicate. I mean, you being a speaker at college campuses, I mean, now with us being so decentralized, off campuses and doing Zoom classes, how do you see communication amongst younger people have changed? And is it for the better or for the worse,
That's like asking, was social media helpful or hurtful?
Right, exactly,
Right? It's
exactly.
both. Um,
Right.
I think, in terms of like there's the virtual setting for everything. I found that in a keynote situation, more students they're watching with their cameras off. Now, as someone who likes to feed off of audiences, that's difficult. However,
Right.
the good speakers have figured out, hey, take to the chat if type in something. Hey, tell me
Right.
about a time when type in something. Use a
Right.
breakout room if you've got a short enough time span or a small enough group. Great, boom, boom, boom. Like, and so I think those, or finding polls, and there's different ways that you can engage audiences. And I found that in the college setting, they're more apt to engage in the chat than had we done some of this stuff live and been like, all right, turn to a
Ah,
friend, where they're really just going to talk whatever and not necessarily the topic at hand. So it's been fascinating to watch. And I think as I've hit the road more recently to campuses, they're over Zoom. Most of them say like, well, we could have done Zoom. No, like students are
I
done
know.
with Zoom.
I'm
They're
done with Zoom. I don't even do Zoom with my
right. Like
one-on-one
I think we
coaching.
all kind of are. We're zoomed out. And I
We're
think, but
zoomed out.
they want, and this is where I think you've seen again, excuse me, speakers do really well as those who bring the authenticity, those who are just themselves, both virtually and in person. Those are the ones that I think have done better, because students, in my opinion, now want authenticity and vulnerability much more so than they did a year and a half ago, because we've been
Ah,
behind a screen. So we want the connections. We want what we've said that we never were able to articulate. We want the quality time. We want to feel like we are valued.
right.
That's what's going to help us.
Yes, that is so important to for people to feel valued, seen, heard, appreciated. And there has been so much time for reflection that has been for some people really great, for other people overwhelming. I have a lot of friends that their younger kids, like in their 20s and 30s, had a really difficult time with all that downtime and all that alone time.
Mhm.
How can parents and people that have parental roles open up these difficult conversations if they feel that their teenager or their young person is withdrawing and there may be something wrong? How
Mhm.
could they open that up to make sure that they're mentally healthy?
Yeah. Well, right. Every person is different. And so I think this is where, like my daughter thrived during home learning, because
Oh,
she's so like, I'm here for class. I'm typey for class, right? And she just did so well academically, and she already was beforehand. But this way, she could just focus on that and wasn't distracted by sports, which she always plays, or
oh,
by friend groups or whatever. She was just so focused on that. My son, on the other hand, and my daughter's 12, my son's 10, and he thrives on interpersonal connections.
oh,
So academically, he was doing, I mean, he did better than he's done before, because this was all he had to do. But socially, he struggled a little bit because he didn't have the day to day.
right.
Now, what's fascinating about all that too is, let's play that out for every education institution from kindergarten or all the way through college. Most of these students that are coming back to school this fall, or have come back to school this fall, hadn't stepped foot on a campus. I'm thinking college, but hadn't stepped foot on a campus in 2 years. They've
Right.
missed out on proms and social events and sporting events, and they've missed out on all these formative pieces. And now they're coming back, in some cases, juniors that were sent home part of the way through their freshman year, sophomores and brand new freshmen. And now they're figuring out all of the things. We're seeing that in my daughter's school, and my daughter and son's school, of like, wow, they just need some more like heavy lifting. I have a friend of mine, his whole approach right now is, we're back to basics. What's a standard drink? What's a standard, like, how do you register a social event? What does this even look like? Because they've not had to function in those ways in so long, that now we need the back to basics of, all right. And that's where I have done some trainings even as lately, or as recently as last week. How do you connect with people now that we're all back?
Right.
And again,
Because you
it's
don't
not
know,
my
do you hug them? Do you handshake?
right.
Do you
I mean,
hip
like, but
bump? Like,
and that, right, and like, and I'm one of those people that like I'm a hugger. And if not, then I'm gonna be like, all right, let me like it's that physical connection of like, let me just boop, like
right,
there we go. But I think and it's not even necessarily that. It's what does a conversation look like? I
right.
didn't realize that, before the pandemic, how much I read lips. But now when people are all kinds of masked, I feel like I don't know what you're doing. And I also find that I like smile more. I'm like, okay, like I'm much more animated. Not that I needed to be.
I know,
Um,
me too.
but I think, but that's a part of what are verbal cues? What are nonverbal
Right.
cues? How do you have a conversation that's more than just, what's your name? What's your major? Where are you from? And leaving it at that. Because I think we throw away so many opportunities for a good conversation with, hey, Deborah, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. All right, cool. And we don't go down that road of, okay, well, tell me more about your day. All right, well, how are you? I'm busy. And all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm busy too, or I'm stressed too. And it becomes a competition that no one wins. And so being able to really bond in a way or share more about yourself, you've got to also then be willing to ask better questions of, well, tell me more about whatever that statement was.
Right. Or yeah, because they say the quality of your questions are the quality of your life. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of, how are you doing? What was your like what I wanted to ask you, what was your biggest lesson of the pandemic when your gigs got I mean, I had 2 years worth of gigs that were just like wipe clean. Why is my
Yeah.
calendar empty? What am I
Um,
doing today? Same
oh
thing I did
yeah.
yesterday. Nothing.
March. It was first week of March, and LA shut down the next week,
Right.
and I, I was in. I'll be honest. I was in fetal position for a vast majority of 2020. I didn't know what to do. I had lost well over 60% of my income from that year, with no guarantees of it coming back. So
Right.
there was a lot of, I would say, soul searching, but really it was just negative coping mechanisms of, I'm going to have a happy hour. You're alone. Okay.
Stay happy
I
hour.
didn't know what to do. And
Right.
so thankfully I had a good group of friends, and
Oh
like
good.
Zoom has existed for a while, and we just would hop on and do a weekly meeting and chat to talk about things. And then really what I think, there's two things that truly kind of helped me. Number one, therapy.
Oh
That
wow.
slaps, right? Like that is good.
Really? It's hard to
Oh,
find a good therapist.
so agreed. I
Mm,
like mine, and I had been seeing her for a little bit prior to the pandemic starting.
nice.
And then I was like, it's a pandemic. I lost all my money. I can't see you anymore. And she said, hold
Oh,
on. And looked into my insurance. And I'm with Kaiser. So FYI,
oh.
for those Kaiser people in the world that might be watching, Kaiser waived all of their online therapy copays.
Oh, that's amazing.
So your boy has been going on a weekly basis for quite some time,
God, that's so
and
great.
it's all just like covered. I've not received, quote unquote, a bill. Now, if I get one at the end of the pandemic with like, here's all your therapy
Oh
bills,
my
I'm
God.
a little upset. I'll be a little upset. That's gonna different therapy, but that really helped me. I think the other piece, I found a professional group of entrepreneurs and those who felt like a better sense of connection that I had been missing. And
Mm,
so I had a friend of mine who was like, Dan, sign up for this course. I was like, it's just a money course. I don't need it. I don't want it. I
right.
don't know, whatever. And he really believed in me. Shout out Archie, I love you. And so he was like, nope, you're going to do it. And day one was all mindset. And I was like, what is this hippy dippy stuff? I don't know if I can curse, so I'm not going to. But I was like, what is this crap? Like, no, I'm not a mindset. I'm not a journal. I'm not like a gratitude. I'm not whatever. And after day one, I was like, oh, let me check this out. I still struggle with mindset. I still struggle with it all, but I have a journal, right? Like it's
Oh,
literally
very
like, I
cool.
have one that I now, wait, you can't see that, but like I'm now doing daily
Nice.
gratitude
That's
practices,
fantastic.
which has truly helped me. And then, so I knew that I started to show up, and that course, it started in December last year. So this hasn't even been a full year of being with this. And I've had people, and I've had, from my ex-wife, my spouse emeritus, to friends.
Spouse emeritus. That's hilarious.
She thought that ex sounded harsh, which is true,
Yeah,
because
I do too. I don't
we
like the
co-parent
word
really
ex.
well.
I say
And
former husband, formerly known as my husband.
yeah, and so what's funny, our friend Lawrence Ross actually came up with spouse emeritus, and so then
Oh.
he had a shirt made that said spouse
Oh
emeritus
my
on
God,
it.
hilarious.
Yeah. But I think people have just said, like, Dan, you're showing up online differently. You're showing up for your work and your job differently. And
Wow.
so I think that has really helped. And I've stayed active with that course. And so it just went from like a little 5-day thing. And now I'm in the mastermind of it. And so that has just continued to push me in a great kind of forward trajectory, while still owning, number one, who I am, but setting goals. Like a lot of people forget to set goals. I set a 90-day goal. Our last one was 90-day goals. So what are they?
Right.
Finding ways for us to do that, I think we've stopped, or we hit pause on, because we didn't know. And the interesting part is we still don't know. No one knows when I don't know that the pandemic is going away.
Right.
And I don't know that I want to return to normal.
Right. Right.
Right? Because
Exactly.
what in the world was normal back then?
It was
So, like,
crazy, overscheduled, overbooked, just too much of everything,
yeah.
right?
And I think the pandemic gave me a lot of good perspective. I think those pieces helped me. And I think the pandemic really gave me a better sense of, trying to be more present for my kids, trying to be more intentional with how I show up. And in fact, and I've never picked words. I've never done like it's the new year, what are your words? I have never, ever, ever done that. And I finally did this past year because of this course. And it really does make a difference when it's done for what makes sense to me, right? What works for me. I'm an overachiever, and I couldn't just pick one. Also, that probably goes with my inability to make decisions. So my 2 words were intentional. Nice. So, like, again, showing up more intentionally, and push. How am I going to push myself, my business, my, like how I parent, how I show up in a better direction?
I love it. And I love the power of writing down your gratitude, but also writing down intentionally what you are co-creating. Because every day you're co-creating by what you focus your attention, and having goals. I mean, Brian Tracy in his book, Maximum Achievement, remember that book? Our number one keynote speaker, mentor, who's like 89 on Facebook Live. I'm like, you're
but that's
Brian Tracy.
It's just a matter of how you want to continue to show up. And I think finally, when you make that decision, it's really interesting to see what continues to happen.
And almost every single person on this podcast has done some sort of a gratitude ritual. It's a common bond of all the guests here on this show, because when you're grateful for what you have, you get more, right?
Yeah. And I think, and part of that is, how do you want to, I think, show up? I'm thankful and very grateful for one of my business partners. We started a kind of a speaker training course. How do you become a speaker for the higher education audiences? And she just launched for the month of November, like a gratitude, in essence, a gratitude challenge, but it's for every day. She gives you a prompt. I'm realizing I love prompts.
Oh, I love
and
prompts.
So that's the easy one for me to just, all right, what are you grateful for? Take 10 minutes, take 5 minutes, name something that's not a person. Why are you grateful for it? So that sort of stuff has been extremely helpful. And it's what pulled me out of what I would consider a really bad rut and depression. I was depressed. And it pulled me out of really just, everything's not out to get me. I actually have a lot that's going for me. Right. Let me be thankful for that. And then all of a sudden it like, you're right. It just started to snowball, right? It kept going, and I'm not mad about it.
From that rampage of appreciation, is like a snowball. It's like contagious. So let us know about that course if people want to sign up for it. And also let us know how we can stay in touch with you. Brittany Devane says the power of gratitude is real. Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day. The power of being grateful, like it literally raises your vibrational frequency.
Yeah,
that energy.
And I was actually joking with an ex-girlfriend who very much believes in vibrational frequencies, and I was like, my issue with
girlfriend emeritus, no,
right, yeah, girlfriend emeritus, exactly. And I remember kind of joking with her. I was like, there's so many coaches that are like, well, just raise your vibrations. And they're having the conversations that are way up here. But we often don't teach people the foundations of what could a gratitude practice look like.
Right.
And we approach from a coach of like, oh, yeah, well, this is what you do. No, find out what's going to work for you. And that's what has helped me. I did the daily, like I have it on my phone to where every night at 10:30, before I can open my phone, it's my like nighttime routine that I have to open up, and I can open up either the Headspace app or I can open up my notes feature. And the notes feature is my thankful for today notes. And it's just so that I go to bed feeling accomplished rather than how I used to go to bed feeling like I was busy but never productive. And I couldn't get ahead. And so I'd go to bed feeling exhausted, and I'd wake up feeling like, oh, here's my to-do list. I still have a giant to-do list, but now I go to bed thankful for what I was able to do today. And then I wake up ready to have more wins that day.
I love it.
Yeah. But again, like it's just coming from where can you start? And it looks different from so many people.
So you set an alarm for 10:30, and the only option on your phone that you could do is Notepad or Headspace. Like that's.
I mean, like yes. I mean, you can still shortcut it and just be like dismiss and go back into the games or whatever. But every night at 10:30, that is my like bedtime, the nighttime routine that you can set. Again, I don't know about Androids, but on an Apple iPhone, you can set it.
I love it. So many people talk about morning ritual, but for people like me, I have a difficult time staying asleep. So
yeah, if I don't have coffee in the morning, I'm not gratituding, right? Like, and that has been, I'm thankful for coffee. That is what I'm thankful for first thing in the morning.
I'm grateful to be awake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's just finding those different opportunities to show thanks and to find those the mental hurdles that we often put in our own way, and really kind of owning that we have a choice that we can make. I can either shut down or I can show up. And for me, I want
to tweetable.
I want to show up, right? And so I silence that imposter syndrome, which I have named, and I love to draw. And so like I've drawn my imposter syndrome so that whenever that little voice shows up, I can just be like, all right, that's cute and that's adorable. I don't need to listen to you right now. And so finding the little tips and tricks that work for different people.
Yeah, I've named mine too. Lola is her name.
Yeah. Mine's Jimmy Cockroach, right? So if the positive one, no, I'm not kidding. When I say I've drawn it, I don't know how much time we have, but I'm going to keep going. But like when I say I've drawn it, all right. But that's Jimmy. That's right.
That's Jiminy Cricket.
Jiminy Cricket, right? Okay, so Jiminy Cricket, right? So we've got Jiminy Cricket, who's like all kinds of positive and like Pinocchio's positive conscience. Yeah. Then for me, my imposter syndrome, which shows up and says, you're not good enough, you can't do this, is Jimmy Cockroach.
Oh, wow. Oh, he's scary. Yeah.
So Jimmy Cockroach is one of those like, you can't do it. Don't forget about it. Don't worry about it. You can't do it. Why are you showing up? Why? Like he's been smoking since he was a little tiny insect. It's fine. Right. But and in those moments where it's like, you shouldn't do it, that sounds ridiculous. And I'm able to mentally laugh a little and just be like, yeah, that does sound ridiculous. And then I try it anyway. And so there's, again, little mindset hack.
Right.
That can be those little pieces that show up for you.
I love it that you because when you personify it, then it gives you the power to choose. Am I going to focus and be Jiminy Cricket, or I'm going to be Jimmy Cockroach? No.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ridiculous to be a cockroach.
Right? That's right. People like to squash a cockroach. And I'm not saying like kill the cockroach, because it's always going to be there. Right?
Exactly.
Like you can't just be like, just don't listen to it. You can't just don't listen to it. You're always going to hear it. It's if you give it attention and if you let it in the driver's seat of your mind, then you're going to be then you're in your own passenger seat.
But Dan, I appreciate you for saying that. And because I think people see someone successful like you and they don't think that you have that imposter syndrome, but they don't realize that you have it, but you're doing these things anyway. You're being big, you're being bold, you're being of service. You know what I mean? You're going out in the world, even when you're feeling depressed because gigs are canceled. Let's go into gratitude. Let's go into therapy. Let's go into service. Let's get into a group of mastermind people. So you're doing the inner work. So that's why you have this success. Well,
and there was a study done from the Journal of Behavioral Health that 70% of the people, and I forget if it was in the world or the United States, suffer from imposter syndrome at some point in their life. I think the other 30% just don't know that it's called imposter syndrome. That's my thought. I
Exactly.
think we've all had it at some point. We may just not know what the name of it is, but finding those opportunities to, again, acknowledge it, call it out, and say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. But again, that in and of itself is an exercise in vulnerability, which we struggle with. So I believe that if we can be a little bit more vulnerable and open and share ourselves and our stories, then we feel more connected. Then we're more apt to say, gosh, I really don't think I can do this. And then all of a sudden, we got the sunshine on our shoulders of the good ones that are like, you can totally do this. Why would you
Yes,
not want to do this? And
exactly.
that's, I mean, again, I think people see in us more than we see in ourselves because the mirror is the hardest place for us to look. So if
Right.
we can own what others see in us, that potential, I mean, that's magic. That's
And that's
magic.
the importance of mentorship because I remember believing in my mentor's belief in me, not myself. They're like, go speak. I'm like, I'm not ready. Yes, you
Mhm.
are. And believing
Yeah.
in their belief. So,
Mhm.
Veronice said she loves your authenticity. Um, and Brittany says 100%.
Yeah.
Just going back, because I want people to have the website. You said you started a program for speakers or for
Yeah.
people,
Or
um,
and aspiring speakers. So
aspiring
it's
speakers.
called voicesforcollege.com. So if you go to
Okay.
voicesforcollege.com, we actually have a free masterclass on the 8th, on December 8th, depending on when you listen to this. And so it's there. It's the bar at the top, December 8th. We've got it in the morning and in the evening, just for those that might need the opportunities or the
Oh,
different
good.
chances. It's a quick 1 hour on how do you even, what are the 5 steps of creating a keynote? And then in the spring, in January, we're going to be launching a 12-week intensive. And that is understanding the entire business behind speaking, but then how do you actually create and craft a keynote to engage and inspire college audiences? Because I think,
Berenice said that's perfect for you.
yeah. And so like, and that's for us, that's our drive. That's our passion. My business partner has been a speaker for 15 years. I've been in this space for a similar amount of time. And so for us, we really want to give people the skills, even if you're already a speaker and have your keynotes. Working with college audiences is very different than working
Different.
with
And also
any
high
sort.
school. Oh my God.
Yeah, and students, and again, this is where the practices of vulnerability come into play because that's what they want, and
Right.
finding those stories can be so helpful.
So December 8th at what time and what time? You said two times.
So we've got our first session. So if you are on Pacific time, like we are right now, if you're Pacific time, it's at 8:30 a.m. on the 8th, and we also have our other one at 4:30. Now that you've put me on the spot, I don't remember it,
Right.
but it is on the website that you can check out there. The
Okay.
Voices for College.
Voices for College. Okay,
Mhm.
great. And we're going to have all of this. We're going to have show notes and transcription. We're going to have the
Thank
links below so you guys can click on them. And even if it's after the 8th that you're tuning in, I'm sure there's going to be other things. So, how can people stay in contact with you and find out all these amazing things? If they want to hire you, if they want to bring you to their college,
you.
where can they connect with you?
Everything, all the social medias, the Facebooks and the Instagrams and all the Twitters,
What about the
in the meta,
clubhouses? Are you on
right? The
Clubhouse?
metas, the metaverses of the world, all of it, and the clubhouses. I am Dan Faill at all of them. So at Dan Faill, DanFaill, two
Two
L's,
L's.
right? And so I am Dan Faill on all social medias and my website, danfaill.com.
Dan, I was so excited for this interview that every Dan that I was supposed to email, I was emailing to you. Somebody was like, "Oh, you emailed to the
Is
wrong
that
Dan."
why I got a
Yes.
holiday
So I'm like,
RSVP?
yes. And they're like, "Are you sure this is like who is this Dan Faill? Because you're just on my mind." So you guys have to put Dan Faill on your mind. FAILL.com. And I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for helping new speakers get started and seasoned speakers go to the next level. Thank you for working with our young men. They are absolutely in need of having positive male role models like yourself. I really just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone because people like my brother who's 31 years old, young male, there's a lot people don't know, and to have a mentor, someone to guide and lead that's experienced,
Mhm.
that is authentic, that's really going to put them on the right path.
Yeah.
So
Well,
important.
we've stifled male vulnerability for the better part of centuries. And so I was talking with a friend of mine just real quick. So for men, when we go to the gym, whenever we're going to lift something really heavy, we get a spotter, right? So if I'm
Mm,
going to bench press more than I've ever bench pressed before, I get a spotter because it's going to be really heavy and I might struggle
right,
with it.
right.
What if, rather than mental health, we called it mental fitness and you got an emotional spotter,
Oh, I like it.
right?
Yeah, because
Someone
then
who's going to
it's
be there to, like,
right,
when you got to do the heavy stuff of vulnerability,
right.
that's how they can show up for you. And that takes time. That takes
Wow.
time and trust to find that person.
So that's what you are. You are that mental, emotional spotter so they can do that heavy lifting
Yeah.
of life because
I mean, I
life
try
is
to,
heavy
right?
lifting.
I think that's part of it. I try to be. And I think that's all
Right.
we can continue to do is strive to be better.
Yes. Yes. And there's so many great tools that we have from you. Thank you. I'm going to set my alarm for 10:30, do some gratitude ritual. Oh, yeah, I am. And thank you all, everyone saying thank you. They said appreciate such a fantastic conversation. And I just want to let you know that we are here each and every week for a Tune In Tuesday at the Align for Success podcast. You can watch on YouTube, you can watch on Facebook. Or if you prefer, we're also on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. I'm so grateful for amazing guests. Thank you, Dan. And thanks all of you. Please share this on your feed. Make sure you share it out. We have a saying here that sharing is caring, and we're in the season of gratitude and Thanksgiving. Would the world be like if everyone was aligned for success? Okay, so I will see you guys next week. We have an amazing guest talking about her miraculous sobriety and how she got sober after many, many years of being in addiction. So tune in next week. And remember, my friends, with the power of synergy, anything is possible. Ciao. Let's say bye to Dan.
Bye,